What if I told you a former U.S. president literally dropped dead on the floor of the U.S. Capitol building? Not in some quiet office, but right there during a heated debate. And what if I told you his funeral was one of the most incredible yet totally forgotten spectacles in American history? Stick around, because the story of John Quincy Adams' death and funeral is a wild ride you won't want to miss. Before we start, this video is a collaboration with the talented graphic artist Digital Yarbs. Digital Yarbs brings historical figures to life by reconstructing life and death masks, daguerreotypes, and early photographs. We will be featuring many of their John Quincy Adams creations in this video. Make sure to follow their YouTube channel and other socials from the links in the video description. So now on to John Quincy Adams' death. John Quincy Adams, the sixth president of the United States, was an absolute force of nature. Even in his 80s, long after his presidency, he was still serving in Congress. People called him the Old Eloquent because of his powerful speeches. He was fighting passionately against slavery, something few dared to do so openly at the time. This wasn't some quiet retirement for him. He was in the thick of it. Here's a side note about this photo of Adams. This photo was taken by Philip Haas in Washington, D.C. in March 1843, while Adams served in Congress. This rare image was gifted to Congressman Horace Everett and later acquired by the National Portrait Gallery in 2017. It really shows Adams' confident demeanor and his later years. He was known for his incredible work ethics. He'd wake up before dawn, read, write, then head to Congress. His commitment was legendary, but it was also taking a toll. He'd already suffered a stroke in 1846, which left him partially paralyzed. Most people would have retired, right? Not John Quincy Adams. He recouped and returned to his duties, driven by a powerful sense of purpose. It was February 21st, 1848. The House of Representatives was buzzing with debate. Adams, true to form, was in his seat. The topic, a resolution honoring some military officers. Suddenly, Adams collapsed. He wasn't just feeling faint, he had suffered a massive stroke. The entire chamber fell silent. Imagine the shock. A former president, a living legend, collapsing right there in front of everyone. Witnesses said that Adams suddenly became red in the face and appeared to be struggling while the voting was going on. Then, without warning, he collapsed at his desk. Some reports say he tried to grab onto his desk as he fell. Others in the chamber heard him cry out, though accounts differ on exactly what he said. Side note, there is a small marker on the floor of Statuary Hall indicating the approximate location of Adams' desk where he collapsed. The National Statuary Hall is a chamber in the United States Capitol devoted to sculptures of prominent Americans. The hall, also known as the Old Hall of the House, was once the meeting place of the U.S. House of Representatives for nearly 50 years between 1807 and 1857. Congressmen rushed to his side. They carried him from the House chamber into the Speaker's room, which was just off the floor. The room essentially became his deathbed. Talk about literally dying on the job in the heart of American democracy. For 2 days, John Quincy Adams laid there, struggling. The entire nation watched, holding its breath. His family rushed to be with him. It was a deeply personal moment, but it was also a public spectacle. Presidents, senators, and ordinary citizens gathered outside the Capitol waiting for the news. One of his last coherent statements, according to some accounts, was, "This is the last of earth. I am content." A truly profound way to exit the stage. He finally passed away on February 23rd, 1848, at 7:20 p.m. The news spread like wildfire. The nation mourned, but what happened next was truly remarkable and often forgotten. Let's go back to that resolution on the floor. When Adams suffered his fatal stroke, he was voting no on a resolution to honor U.S. Army officers for their service in the Mexican-American War. The war was fought April 25, 1846 to February 2, 1848, ending just about 20 days before the vote. Adams collapsed shortly after the vote was on the floor. Adams, being an outspoken opponent of the war, had shouted no when the resolution was proposed. The resolution was passed shortly after he was removed from the chamber. Here's a fun fact about this resolution. Another congressman was also opposed to the Mexican-American War, Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln served in the U.S. House of Representatives for a single term from March 4, 1847 to March 3, 1849, representing Illinois as a member of the Whig Party. He was elected to the 30th Congress in 1846. During his time in Washington, he focused on opposing the Mexican-American War. This daguerreotype photo is Lincoln in his late 30s as a member of the United States House of Representatives. Lincoln viewed the war as an unjust, unconstitutional, and immoral war provoked by President Polk to expand slavery, famously challenging Polk by demanding to know the exact location where American blood was shed on American soil as justification for the war. As a freshman Whig congressman, Lincoln introduced these resolutions questioning Polk's claim and even voted for measures censoring the president, a stance that cost him political support at home, but made him revered in Mexico. I found a 40-page copy of a speech he made to Congress where he accused President Polk. This speech was made January 12, 1848, just weeks before Adams died at the Capitol. In the speech, Lincoln claims wrongdoing in calling for war against Mexico. He makes a strong and principled argument against attacking another country unjustly. I found this speech and other facts about the Mexican-American War so interesting that I decided to do a whole video on this speech and others about their opposition to the war. So let's get back to John Quincy Adams' death. His death sparked a period of national mourning, unlike almost anything seen before. Remember, this was a time when the country was deeply divided over issues like slavery and states' rights. Yet, this one moment, they largely came together. Both houses of Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate, wore black armbands for 30 days. That's a serious sign of respect. Even fierce political rivals put aside their differences to honor him. Adams' body laid in state in the House of Representatives for a brief period, but then began a journey that was truly unique. Before his body left Washington, D.C., he was held in the Congressional Cemetery's public vault for 8 days. The Congressional Cemetery Public Vault was built in 1832 and is a historic structure that served as a temporary receiving tomb for officials, including Presidents Adams, William Henry Harris, and Zachary Taylor, as well as First Lady Dolly Madison. It provided a resting place for dignitaries who died in Washington before their remains could be transported home. Dolly Madison was interred in the public vault from her death on July 16, 1849, until February 1852. After that, her remains were moved to the private vault of her niece's father-in-law, also located at the Congressional Cemetery, where they remained until 1858, before being moved to Montpelier, Virginia. There were no funds to give the famous First Lady an honorable resting place. You can find a video about Dolly Madison's plight at the end of her life on our channel. He wasn't just buried quickly. His final journey was a cross-country procession. Adams' body was first taken to his home in Quincy, Massachusetts, but this wasn't a private affair. This procession was enormous, stopping in cities along the East Coast like Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York. In each city, thousands upon thousands of people lined the streets. Buildings were draped in black, bells tolled. His funeral train was accompanied by military escorts and civil leaders at every stop. It was a rolling tribute, a national pilgrimage to honor a fallen leader. Each city held its own memorial ceremonies with speeches and somber music. It was a way for a young nation to collectively grieve and to show reverence for a man who had dedicated his entire life to public service, from diplomat to president to congressman. By the way, did you know that John Quincy Adams was in the world's first deadly railroad accident in 1833? The train was traveling at a steady speed of 20 miles an hour, which was quite fast for those days, and was about 3 miles outside of Hightstown, New Jersey, when an axle broke on the forward coach. The broken axle caused the second coach to derail and overturn, injuring all 24 passengers inside, including Cornelius Vanderbilt, who broke his leg. 2 passengers were killed and are considered the first passengers ever killed in a train accident. Adams somehow escaped the derailment unharmed, but the 66-year-old former president was shaken. After eventually arriving in Philadelphia that night, Adams turned to his diary and recorded the harrowing details of the world's first deadly railroad accident. Blessed, ever blessed be the name of God, that I am alive and escaped unhurt from the most dreadful catastrophe that ever my eyes beheld. Finally, after this incredible train journey, John Quincy Adams' body arrived home in Quincy, Massachusetts. His funeral services were held at the First Parish Church, a place deeply connected to his family. He was to lay to rest in the family crypt beneath the church, alongside his beloved wife, Louise Catherine Adams, and his parents, John Adams and Abigail Adams. The crypt is actually the only presidential crypt in the United States that contains two presidents and their first ladies. A true historical gem, often overlooked. At the front of the church, you can also find memorials to each, along with other family members. One little hidden fact is the Adams were not always under the church. They were once at the local Hancock Cemetery across from the United First Parish Church, a cemetery named after Reverend John Hancock Jr., father of founding father John Hancock. Why are they not in the original tomb at Hancock Cemetery? John and Abigail Adams were first interred in the vault in Hancock Cemetery, but a letter was recently discovered written by John Quincy Adams that he wanted his parents to be buried in the church. In a letter dated September 8, 1826, which he composed just over 2 months after his father's death on July 4th, Adams wrote,
"Upon the decease of my late honored father, I have considered it a duty devolving upon me to erect a plain and modest monument to his memory, and my wish is that divested all ostentation it may yet be as durable as the walls of the temple, and as the rocks of his native town, which are to supply the materials for it. I have many reasons for desiring that this may be undertaken without delay, and among the rest that both my parents may not remain for an indefinite time without a stone to tell where they lie."
After that, the crypt under the church was then built for his parents, John and Abigail Adams. When John Quincy Adams died, he too was interred inside the family vault in Hancock Cemetery. Shortly after his death, his wife Louisa died in 1852. On the wishes of their son, John Quincy Adams was moved to his final resting place at the family crypt across the street at the United First Parish Church, joining his parents, John and Abigail, along with his wife Louisa. Here's another fun fact about John Quincy Adams. In 1826, President John Quincy Adams planted an American elm on the south grounds of the White House, near the top of what is known as the Eastern Jefferson Mound. This tree became known as the John Quincy Adams elm. Adams was a student of horticulture. He was highly enthusiastic about trees and gardens during his presidency, establishing a nursery on the southwest grounds and cultivating over 700 saplings during his tenure. Prior to his presidency, Adams played a role in the creation of the first botanical garden in Washington, D.C. during his time as Secretary of State in President James Monroe's administration. Adams' motivation for planting trees on the grounds was described in his own words as more for the public than myself. Adams actively changed the landscape of the White House and set a standard for the role of the president in responsibly shaping the grounds for future generations. After growing for more than 160 years on the White House grounds, the John Quincy Adams elm was cut down in 1991 due to disease. Several descendant trees were planted, but unfortunately, these all eventually succumbed to Dutch elm disease. A section of the original tree is now on display in the White House Visiting Center. So there you have it, the dramatic end of John Quincy Adams' life and the incredible, often forgotten, national funeral that followed. It reminds us that history isn't just about dates and names. It's about the very human stories, the moments of drama, and the profound impact individuals can have. Thank you for joining us today. We invite you to watch all our videos from famous funerals to diving into the archives to find generations of history. And remember to be kind in everything you do, including the comments you make.